What's going on, kids? It's a new week. I'm excited about today's show. Sometimes I'm a little depressed about, not depressed, but maybe sad about the show, or it's going to be very serious. Sometimes I'm just flat excited because there's a lot of good stuff I want to bring to the table today. Um, some of you are noticing the beard. Wife likes. This is not. This is a beard. This is a beard of depression. I mentioned this is a beard of depression. Let's be clear about that. Okay, there is an overarching depression settling in, and it's not even the Mets coming off an 8-game skid trying to give up the wild card spot. It's my Bears. I'm losing sleep. Last night, nightmares of Caleb Williams overthrowing receivers, blockers, turnstiling, defenders. Jalen Johnson's hamstring snapped at least 25 times in my nightmares last night. Dude's out again. We are the worst. We are the worst. The Bears are possibly the worst team in the NFL. We're worse than Scotty's Jets. We're possibly the worst team in the NFL. Not going to spend a ton of time on it. It's not this show. Not this time. I'm in a period of I'm trying to heal. So don't come at me about it either, because I know some of you guys revel in my Bears disappointment. See a lot of stuff on the table today. There's a lot of papers on the table. There's usually a lot of papers on the tables. There's a lot of papers on the tables today. It's just for show. I don't read a word of it. Scotty is the Cyrano de Bergerac of podcasting. Everything he says, I say. He says it in my ear, word for word. Everything I say, including that last Bears diatribe. He says it in my ear, and then I say it. No. Just an AI prompt. Okay. Look, we got a ton of stuff to get to today, and we're going to get to it right now. Right this second, we're going to get to it. Little bit more details have come out about the Charlie Kirk shooter. And I'm going to give you some of these details, and we're going to hear from Governor Cox. He went on the media circuit. He went to multiple places talking about this. Spencer Cox. We heard from him right after the shooting. I lauded much of what he said. So some details have come out, and we're going to hear from him. Tyler Robinson, he has not confessed to the authorities, nor is he taking part in the investigation at all. Now, Spencer Cox has said, among a lot of things, he said that Tyler Robinson's leftist ideology is beginning to come clear. That's his words. Leftist ideology. It made me think, what part of leftist ideology should be mentioned in a negative light? I mean, I'm being serious about it. Is it the anti-fascist aspect of his ideology? Is it freedom? Less guns? No, it's not freedom. It's not less guns. So that doesn't even track, because if he believed in freedom, he would have believed in Charlie Kirk's right to say what he was saying. If he believed in less dead children, less guns, possibly he wouldn't be such a huge gun enthusiast and so adept at shooting them. So, I mean, is it the left thinks that rich should pay their share? Is that the part? What part of the ideology, A, even holds to leftist values, and B, is even remotely relevant in this situation? So I don't really appreciate this leftist ideology blanket that they're draping the whole thing in. It's really, it doesn't sit well with me, and it's a misappropriation, I feel, of a political term in this case. Okay, so yeah, he's not helping with their investigation. It's true that he was living with somebody who was transitioning from a male to a female. That person reportedly was shocked to hear the details. Again, I'm not sure, if you clear this person of any wrongdoing, I feel like the conversation about this person should absolutely end right there. Nothing else relevant to really talk about here. Did they take part? Did they know? Did they fail to alert? Were they complicit in any way? No. Is it no to all that? Then that's where the conversation should probably stop. Right there. Right there. He's being held without bail at Utah County Jail. He is on suspicion, and I think Scotty said charges are coming later today. Tuesday. Charges are coming tomorrow. But he's held on suspicion of aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, and discharge of a weapon causing serious bodily harm. Now, the aggravated murder charge. That's the one that is a capital felony charge and could end up with either life imprisonment or the death penalty in Utah. What do you think will happen with that decision? There won't possibly be any pressure from this administration or large voices on the right about that decision. Now, he's being held in a special housing unit. He's been under supervision, special supervision, since he's got there. They're not aware of any suicidal thoughts, comments, or actions so far, and he will undergo a mental review. He will. Mr. Cox said a few things. He said friends have confirmed that there was a deep, dark internet Reddit culture, and these are the dark places of the internet that this person was going. Okay, we're trying to figure it out. I know everybody wants to know exactly why and point the finger. He said, I just want to be careful. Smart move. Smart move, considering all of the rhetoric we've heard about the why prior to any of this coming out, and we are still prior to any hard, knowable facts concerning the motives of this shooter. Still don't know exactly why or what caused it. Not exactly. Let's wait till we know before we ramp up the rhetoric and start pointing fingers. But this administration is definitely not interested in that. We'll get to that. He did say, if your view of America is not shaken right now, then there's something wrong with you. This is an assault on America. Every one of us has to look in the mirror and decide, are we going to make it better or are we going to make it worse? That was good. Well said. And John Curtis responded to some of these interviews. I liked what John Curtis had. He said, if it were up to me, this is John Curtis, by the way, senator out of Utah. This is the senator from Utah, Republican. He said, if it were up to me, I think you need to take the word radical and remove right or left. Radical coming from any direction is not good and it's not healthy and it should be called out. So the Republicans in Utah, for the most part, are saying the right things. And I appreciate it first and applaud them for it second. I really appreciate it. It would be really easy for Spencer Cox and the senator to just jump right on board with this culture war, ramp it up. It's their home state. They could ramp it right up if they wanted to, and they're not. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. Trump was asked about it. Listen to this.
My condolences on the loss of his friend. How are you holding up over the last 3.5 days?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks. They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty. It'll be an absolutely magnificent structure. And I just see all the trucks. We just started, so it'll get done very nicely, and it'll be one of the best anywhere in the world, actually.
Thank you so much.
What does that speak to most? He's asked about Kirk, and he goes on this disassociated diatribe, stream of consciousness about the grounds and the work being done, how beautiful this is all going to look. What does that speak to most? Does that speak to his failing mental faculties most? Does it speak to just the callousness of this man most? Just, the man is not all there. He is not all there. He's not all there, and he's not healthy. And he can't answer direct questions. I don't even believe that was like a concerted dodge. He literally can't answer a direct question. He can't. Workers are getting fired over this. People are saying things about this. You want to hear from Stephen Miller? Let's hear from Stephen Miller. You love hearing from Stephen Miller, right? I mean, definitely in the running for the most disgusting white nationalist in the Trump administration. Even if you're a big Trumper and you like to defend Trump, I mean, Stephen Miller's motivations and his ideology seems pretty clear to everybody. Let's hear from him.
And let me tell you something I'd not share with anybody, but the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us.
I just don't believe him. I want to see it. I don't believe you. Whether that message exists or not, how disgusting is it that he would take the last message from his dear friend and use it as a piece of propaganda to spin on Fox News immediately after his passing? I mean, there is no emotion, all dead blackness in those eyes as he uses his best friend's final message as a talking point on Fox. That's disgusting. That's disgusting. He continues.
And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing, that are trying to inspire terrorism, and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate: you want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile.
Okay. And he's not necessarily wrong. It's already begun. I just said people are getting fired over their Kirk comments. People are getting exiled over their Kirk comments. Lots of people. Lawyers, teachers, next door employees, employees of the NFL, employees of FEMA. All sorts of people are getting fired. Dozens and dozens of people are getting fired for their Charlie Kirk comments. Dozens. I have a few examples, just a couple. We're not going to get into a ton of examples of whatever. But you yourself have seen a lot of things being said in the wake of Charlie Kirk's passing on both sides. And not all of it is very pretty. And you can recognize that. I'm not breaking anything with that either. But I'm going to give you a couple examples that got people fired. One teacher, Laura Sosh-Lightsey at Middle Tennessee University, she tweeted, "Looks like old Charlie spoke his fate into existence." Now, she was the assistant dean of students at Middle Tennessee. She also wrote, "Hate begets hate, zero empathy." Zero sympathy, I'm sorry. Let me be correct. Is that fireable? Do you feel that's fireable? Charlie gets to say, when I get on a plane and I see a black pilot, I have to wonder if he's qualified. Charlie got to say that when I get my food from a fat black worker at a fast food restaurant, I wonder if she got her job over a more qualified white person. But Laura Sosh-Lightsey is not allowed to say, "Looks like Charlie spoke his fate into existence. Hate begets hate, zero sympathy." I'm just taking a tally here. I just want to be real clear. She was fired. FEMA workers fired. Laura Loomer, she's the one who pointed at the FEMA worker. The FEMA worker said, "Half-mast for the literal racist, homophobe, misogynist, BFFR." That's B bleeping for real. Fired. And Laura Loomer celebrated it. Miller is celebrating these firings. Trump is celebrating these firings. Most employees, they don't have the rights against firing. They can be fired for any reason. Most private sector workers, state workers, they have their First Amendment protected, but there are very few avenues for them to go to get defense in the light of something like this. So people are just getting fired for the same free speech that the right is telling us Charlie Kirk died for.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
Last week, just to follow up on what Stephen Miller is suggesting here, he said, quote, the Democratic Party is not a political party, it's a domestic extremist organization.
Well, they have a very different view than I do. I'm a conservative Republican. I have Democratic friends that think very differently, vote very differently, but they're still my friend on it. So just having that ideology, just believing differently than some other American is not illegal. That's America. We don't all agree as next door neighbors on different things, but it is very different to try to plan, strategize to be able to carry out an act of violence on it. That is different. So we do have a celebration of differences in America. Quite frankly, Charlie Kirk literally has on his banners when he speaks on college campuses, prove me wrong, and would say, if you disagree with me, I'm going to seat you closer to the front so we can actually have dialogue. The goal of it is to be able to talk about things. As Charlie Kirk said often, when the words stop, the violence starts. That's when people say, no more words, I'm going to now attack you. Let's keep talking about things and keep working through this.
That is Republican Steve Langford. That is Republican Steve Langford, and that's perfect. In response to a looming figure in his party's administration, he speaks truth right to that power. We have to keep talking. That's not the right way to handle this, Stephen Miller. I mean, he didn't say it like that, but that's basically what he was saying, especially in response to Stephen's comments. Let's hear from more people that we have respected what they've had to say on these things. I read you some of what Spencer Cox said. Let's hear from some people. Let's hear from some people, okay?
So he was grateful for the press conference. Others in his orbit, Governor, were not. Steve Bannon talked about you calling to tone down the rhetoric, saying Spencer Cox is a national embarrassment in a time where we need action. He tells us to sing Kumbaya and hold hands with Antifa. This is not a time for pontificating. This is a time to declare Antifa a domestic terrorist organization and have the FBI go kick down some doors. What's your response to Steve Bannon?
Well, again, Mr. Bannon is angry, and rightfully so. And I'm not saying we have to just sing Kumbaya and hold hands. What I'm saying is we actually should disagree. I think Charlie represented that better than anyone. Charlie said some very inflammatory things, and in some corners of the web, that's all people have heard. But he also said some other things about forgiveness. He said some amazing things about when things get dark, putting down our phones, reading scripture, going to church, talking to our neighbors. He said that we have to engage, and that's what I appreciate most about Charlie Kirk. Said if we don't keep talking, that's when the violence starts. Look, there are conflict entrepreneurs out there who benefit from radicalizing us, and I'm not one of those. I don't know that that's particularly helpful. But he is right at this: we need to find out how this happened, and we need to stop it from happening.
Conflict entrepreneurs. That was a new term for me, and I like it. Thank you, Spencer. I'm going to steal that from you. Stephen Miller is certainly that. He's a conflict entrepreneur. By the way, I do want to say this. If there is a discernible link between an actual group of people who call themselves Antifa and hurt other people, then yeah, go after them. Prosecute them. Break it up. Stop it. Violence for any reason, but in this case, political violence, is wrong from anyone. And although Antifa, meaning anti-fascist, is a great sentiment, you can be anti-fascist without meeting with other people and, conspiring to some illegal act. Now, I'm not saying that's happening. From what I understand, is Antifa is more of a movement than a group of people, but I haven't done all of my homework on it. you can certainly be anti-fascist without being in any type of group. And if you ask somebody in the KKK, you know, if the KKK gets together and conspires criminality using weaponry or whatever, go after them, and they have. But if you talk to a KKK member, they'd say, well, no, it's just about white heritage. It's about tradition. It's about keeping our race alive and not diluted and died out. They'll have rationalities, just like somebody who's Antifa would have rationalities, good ones. But if any of these groups are getting guns and hurting people over political motivation, then put a stop to them. Fine with me. That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. Mike Johnson. We've been hearing a lot from Mike Johnson lately. Some good, some bad. It's a mixed bag with him lately. I think he is being a little more judicious with his wording and speaking a little slower these days in front of the cameras, which is probably a smart move for Mike.
Do you get the sense there is some real soul searching on both sides of the aisle about how we got here?
I think there is. I've spoken to a lot of members on both sides of the aisle, and there's this recognition that, you know, people have got to stop framing simple policy disagreements in terms of existential threats to our democracy and all these phrases you hear all the time. You can't call the other side fascists and enemies of the state and not understand that there are some deranged people in our society who will take that as cues to act and do crazy and dangerous things. And that's what we've seen in increasing frequency. So members of Congress and all public officials have an obligation to speak clearly into this and calm the waters. We can have vigorous disputes. I mean, Charlie Kirk was an expert at that. He loved debate. But Charlie also advanced another really important idea, and that is that he loved the people on the other side of that table. He was never motivated by hate.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there, Mike Johnson. Don't take another step in that direction. Because I don't want to have to do a whole show digging up Charlie Kirk clips as you talk about love for the person on the other side of that table. Stop right in your tracks. Why don't we instead address something else you just said? We can't call each other fascists. Really? Really? Okay. Let's go down that path instead, shall we?
The divide in American politics today is between these far-left fascists led by Harris and her group. We have a fascist person running who's incompetent. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. She's not actually a socialist. She's gone past that. Somebody's got to explain this woman. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
Everyone, every ist got checked off. Really, Mike, we can't go around calling each other fascists, huh? That's going to activate a dangerous portion of our society is what you said, right? Yeah, like the people who shot at Minnesota state lawmakers and killed them, and the people who set governors' mansions on fire, and the people who beat people in the head with hammers. You mean that segment of society, Mike? It's so fun when it's so easy, right? When we can just bang, bang. It's just so easy. It's just so easy. What's Trump saying these days?
Charlie Kirk, sir, what organizations on the left do you anticipate investigating? You talked about this last week.
Well, the problem is on the left. If you look at the problem is on the left. It's not on the right, like some people like to say on the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left. That's not the right.
Do you plan on investigating?
We'll see. We'll be announcing.
That's the left. It's not the right. The President of the United States sees half this country as his mortal enemy. And he is looking for a way to hurt you jail you, unalive you, all of the above, that extreme and more. You are an enemy in what he hopes to be an actual war with generals like Steve Bannon and Steve Miller and Pete Hegseth ready to do whatever is necessary in the name of their dear leader and his culture war. James Telrico had a whole nother enemy in mind when he was in an interview earlier. He was in an interview on MSNBC. James Telrico does not see the right or the left as his enemy. Who's James Telrico see as the enemy?
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting. I've been in this race for 5 days, and I've had a lot of interviews with national media. No one's ever asked me about the cost of housing. No one's asked me about the cost of prescription drugs. No one's asked me about the cost of childcare. The only thing the media wants to ask me about are trans athletes. And so what I would say is that the only minority destroying this country is the billionaires. Trans people are 1% of the population. Undocumented people are 1% of the population. Muslims are 1% of the population. We are all focused on the wrong 1%. Trans people aren't taking away our health care. Undocumented people aren't defunding our schools. Muslims aren't cutting taxes for themselves and their rich friends. It's the billionaires and their puppet politicians. And so we need not only the media, but all of us to focus on the real problem at hand.
I'm gonna move to Texas so I can vote for that dude. I agree with him. Now, I'm not saying it's French Revolution time. I'm just saying if I had to pick the group of people that has got my interests at heart the least, that is the biggest threat to my happiness and the American dream, it's the billionaires. It's not the trans. It's not undocumented immigrants. And it's not Muslims. I completely agree with him. I completely agree with him. Of course, I have about as much exposure to all four of them equally, which is none, pretty much. I mean, I don't know many trans people, if I can't off the top of my head, unless I don't know what I don't know. I don't know who's undocumented, so it's not a topic of conversation. Or I say to myself, I'm going to hang out with my undocumented friend. I don't know who's undocumented. I don't know. I'm not asking you that. I don't know a lot of Muslims, and I don't know any billionaires. So I'm just going to kind of sidestep it as from a personal point of view, because I'm really not affected. I'm affected by billionaires, but I don't know any of them. So, but look, I told you, people are getting fired. Matthew Dowd got fired.
Been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
Okay. Matthew Dowd got fired for that from MSNBC. From MSNBC, Matthew Dowd got fired. Yeah, exactly, Scotty. MSDNC. He got fired. He got fired hours after that. Hate begets hate. So Charlie Kirk, freedom warrior. Matthew Dowd, fired for expressing the freedom that Charlie died for. Who else got fired? This next one, I don't care who's been murdered recently or what the political climate of this country is. This should have been fireable. I misspoke, not who else got fired, who should have gotten fired. This is crazy. So Matthew Dowd gets fired for saying that. Then Brian Kilmeade goes right on his morning show and says this.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
Excuse me? You all heard him right. Maybe we should just give him some involuntary lethal injection. Why bother with the involuntary lethal injection, Brian? That could take a lot of time and effort and people who know what they're doing. Why don't you just head out there with a death squad? Why don't you just hit the streets of LA or some other city that's inundated with the homeless and just summarily execute them? Just why bother with the lethal injection? Unbelievable. Scotty told me I should be careful with my sarcasm because sometimes some things I say in jest could be clipped, isolated, and it just sounded like I said. Yeah. You know what, Scotty? You're having an effect. You're having an effect, bud. Good job. Yeah, he just said that. We didn't doctor the clip. AI is getting pretty good these days. That ain't AI. That is just one really insensitive, dumb person on a huge show that millions of people watch saying that. And of course, it got pushback. And even Fox had to recognize just the disgusting nature of what he said and forced this.
In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zaruska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion.
Those are just words. You said what you said, and you said it in a moment of like conversation. You guys were off script. You were talking off the cuff about how you felt about the current state of the homeless situation, and that's what you said.
You know, there's a saying, there's no bad idea in brainstorming. That was a bad idea in brainstorming.
That was the worst idea in brainstorming, and that's what they were doing. They were brainstorming. So you know what, Brian? You can shove your apology. You're disgusting, and that is how you feel. We all know it. I'm sure there's many people who are watching you who are like, yeah, Brian, great job. Finally, somebody's saying it. Kill the homeless. I bet there's an uncomfortable amount of people watching that program that felt that way, and they are equally as confused as to why Brian would have to go on Fox and make an apology for such a reasonable statement. The number of those people is probably alarmingly high.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
Okay, so in light of all of the leftist ideology and left-wing radicals that are advocating violence and are approving of the violence, Trump is activated. Trump is activated. He vows a crackdown on anybody who says anything out of alignment with Trumpism on the Charlie Kirk issue. You say anything that may be deemed as, you know, complicit to it, or you're an approval of it, or making light of it, or pointing out the irony in any way, he vows a crackdown. He vows a crackdown. He said in that address, the radical left political violence. That's what he said. So the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, had something to say, and this is a little incoherent, so I want to preface this by telling you that. I'm going to read what she said. Our White House Chief of Staff said this. We were actually already working, spurred on as much by the Ukrainian woman who was killed on the train as by Charlie's tragic passing, On a more comprehensive plan on violence in America, the importance of free speech and civil speech, the ways you can address these, they can only be called hate groups that may breed this kind of behavior. You were with her, right? It was tentative, but you were with her for most of it. And then it went completely off the rails at the end. That is your, I'm assuming, sober White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. That's her statement to the press. She continues. So in the coming days, the president will be telling the American people about what we plan to do. It will not be easy. There's layer upon layer upon layer, and some of this hate-filled rhetoric is multi-generational, but you've got to start somewhere. Like, if I took away the source of this, you absolutely would have no clue which a mouthpiece from which side was saying this. You'd have no compass. It could be absolutely anybody on any side. It really could. That last bit, multi-generational, hate-filled rhetoric. And Stephen Miller, he put in his 2 cents about this. That's right. We're going to hear more from Stephen Miller. You need to know what you're dealing with this dude. That's why we bring you so much of this guy. You got to know what you're dealing with. There is an ideology that has steadily been growing in this country, which hates everything that is good, righteous, and beautiful, and celebrates everything that is warped, twisted, and depraved. It is an ideology at war with family and nature. It is envious, malicious, and soulless. I give up. Who are you talking about? Oh. Of course, he's talking about the radical left. Of course he is. I was ready to agree with him if maybe he was talking about somebody else. But that's how Stephen Miller feels about you, the left. That's how he feels about you. And they're not just talking about it. They're not just giving us incoherent rants to the press about it. They're not just turning to white nationalist all-star Stephen Miller about it. They're doing something about it. The State Department on Thursday, this is last Thursday, said it was going to review the legal status of any immigrants, any status, visa, documented, undocumented, whatever. All of you will have your status reviewed if you praise, rationalize, or make light of Charlie Kirk's passing. Okay? And they've done something like this before. They did it when the pro-Palestine protests started to ramp up on the college campuses. They said then any immigrants engaging in pro-Palestinian protests will have their immigration status reviewed. They're doing it again. They said, quote, in light of yesterday's, it was at the time, horrific assassination of a leading political figure. That's a little far, but I want to underscore that foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome visitors to our country, Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said. So, if you make light, rationalize, or have something to say about Charlie Kirk's death that they don't like, they will review your status. Freedom warrior Charlie Kirk, say anything about his passing, and your freedoms may be taken. Chris Murphy, he had a series of tweets, which are going to lead me to where I'm going for the rest of the show and speak to what we're seeing right now. Stories I'm bringing you right now about actionable steps being taken by this administration over your speech. Free speech. Keep that in mind. Chris Murphy, I play him a lot. He said, pay attention, something dark might be coming. Okay, he said the murder of Charlie Kirk could have united Americans to confront political violence. Instead, Trump and his anti-democratic radicals look to be readying a campaign to destroy dissent. He points to some posts by Stephen Miller and others. He says, look, some of the GOP has been depoliticizing this. Some of them have, but others including Trump and his closest lieutenants, are ramping it up. He points to a few things on his way to the wrap-up of this stream of tweets. He points to a few things. He points to Miller and Trump saying George Soros should be facing racketeering charges, claiming Soros is involved in violence. These are made up, completely made up, out of thin air, these accusations against George Soros. He said, Chris Murphy's pointing to these things. He's saying, look, something may be coming, something bigger. Something bigger. You know, he pointed directly, he tweeted, I got to paraphrase because too much reading. He pointed directly to the Trump administration and his lieutenants going straight to C. Remember, I said this is bothering me because they're going from A, the murder, to C. Let's do something about this radical leftist violence, ignoring the B, which is who is this person and why did they do it? And he points to the same thing. It has been a campaign to destroy the left, systematic, and this is a big step in that campaign. This is a big step. And he also points to how important it is for the DOJ and the FBI to be run by sycophants so they can hit you with a dizzying campaign of indictments, accusations, investigations to keep all of their political opposition on guard, off balance, on the defense. He says, he basically wraps it up and says, this weaponization of the FBI and the DOJ is going to get darker and more serious and more prevalent. He hopes he is wrong. He hopes he's wrong, and he finishes it with, everyone who cares about democracy has to join the fight right now. Join a mobilization or protest group, start showing up to actions more, write a check to a progressive media operation. We need to be prepared to fight. We need to be prepared to fight. And that dizzying campaign, the assault by the FBI and the DOJ and the FHFA and its director, Bill Pult, it was actually dealt a blow. A pretty serious blow. And man, I was telling Scotty, I'm really scared about this one. This one really scares me. We're going to get into details about where we are in the Lisa Cook firing. Because the Trump administration was dealt a serious blow. The FHFA's credibility was dealt a serious blow. And they seem to not care. And this could get to scary territory.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Brett breaks things. Fighting for America, one mic drop at a time.
If it's true, as NBC News has reported, looking over these documents that suggest that, not suggest, they show that she identified this home as a second home, a vacation home. She did not seek a lower mortgage rate. She did not seek exemptions, again, according to NBC News reporting. If that gets presented to a judge, does the whole case get thrown out the window?
Yeah, I mean, in order to actually prove mortgage fraud, prosecutors would have to show that she was really intentionally trying to mislead the lender about what she intended to do with the property. So while, again, I don't know that we can definitively say that these documents show that she was fully transparent.
Maybe
or
there
made
are
the right
others. We don't
disclosures.
know. Right.
Correct. But if they are accurate, and if this, does show that she at least intended to be somewhat transparent about how she wanted to use this property as a vacation home or as a second home, then certainly that would make it almost impossible for prosecutors to put forth some sort of a mortgage fraud case. So to the extent we're looking at whether this now gives the president the authority under the Federal Reserve Act to fire her for cause, I would think that would be much more difficult to make that case in court now.
Okay, you heard her. Let me be clear for you. On Lisa Cook's declared financial forms, the Atlanta condo was a vacation property, a vacation home. Okay? There were 2 documents that prove her innocence in this and that she fully understood what she was being asked about these properties and has been consistent in her answers. Now, the loan summary from the Bank Fund Staff Federal Credit Union in May 2001 reads, property use, vacation home. Additionally, public records from Fulton County, reviewed by NBC News, shows that no tax exemptions available for primary residences were sought by Cook at any time. So not only did she not list the Atlanta residence as her primary home, she did not treat or try to gain any exemption that you would seek for a primary residence. She did none of these. Now, do you remember that integrity questionnaire, the ethics questionnaire that I had mentioned that she filled out that they want to point to that she lied on? Well, they've got that as well. The questionnaire for national security positions that she submitted in 2021 and then later submitted to Senate reads, please list all of your interests in real estate property, including additional homes, vacation homes, rental properties, and interests in trusts that may hold property. Cook responded by writing about that Atlanta home that it was a second home, and it had the address of the Atlanta property. So in that ethics disclosure, she also put it was a second home. There's really no there. There's really nothing there. This should be a huge black eye for Bill Polt, director of the FHFA. He should be ashamed of himself. He has been completely weaponized and slapdash in the manner with which he is running the FHFA. He is completely weaponized. He is doing Trump's bidding. He is overstepping Joe John Allen, the IG of the FHFA. Not only is he bringing these investigations to the DOJ's door, but they're fraudulent investigations at that. Fraudulent. And these horses are in a race. All these horses are in a race. They're looking to get Stephen Mirin in his seat. They're looking to get Lisa Cook out. They're looking to have an appeals court overturn Gia Cobb's ruling that Lisa Cook can return to work. All these things are racing up to tomorrow's the 16th, right, Scotty? Tomorrow's September 16th. The Fed is meeting 16th and 17th. It is such an obvious race for this administration to chip away at the Fed independence. They expect the Stephen Mirin nomination to be done by today. And the Trump administration is in front of a U.S. Court of Appeals, District of Columbia Circuit judge panel to get them to rule right now, today, by tonight, to stay Gia Cobb's decision in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia that found that Trump could not remove Mrs. Cook for the conduct that was detailed out. She didn't rule on the efficacy or the veracity of the information. She ruled that even if this is true, it happened before she was ever sat at the board, and you can't fire somebody at the Fed without just cause relating to their performance. That's what Gia Cobb said. You can't do this. She can go back to work. If she can go back to work, that means she can go to this September 16th and 17th meeting at the Fed. Trump is doing everything he can to stop that. His lawyers are in court right now. They say, what are his lawyers saying? They're saying that the decision to remove Miss Cook is an unreviewable exercise of the discretion Congress vested in the president. Unreviewable. You can't even question it. We shouldn't even be talking about this. The president can do what he wants. They also argued this was reasonable Because if these claims are true, then she can't be trusted to sit on our Fed board. These are fraud charges, right? This is a money crime. And she's sitting on the biggest, most important spot, the Fed board, in terms of money. And so she can't be trusted with money. She's a fraudster, is what they're saying. This is completely reasonable, Trump's firing. She's a fraudster. She wants this appellate panel, Trump wants this appellate panel to rule today. Today. And the lawyers for Ms. Cook have told the court that the decision that prevents her from attending the meeting and casting a vote on the interest rates could unleash turmoil in the financial markets and undermine the political independence of the Fed. So I'm going to guess, this is my guess, that this appellate panel will rule against Trump's lawyers, against the administration. I'm going to guess that they will not put a hold on Judge Giacob's decision. I'm going to guess that Lisa Cook is going to go to that board meeting. And she's going to be joined by Stephen Mirren. Remember, Stephen Mirren is the guy who sits on the Council of Economic Advisors for the president within the administration. He has now been picked to fill in Kugler's empty seat, which ends in January, so it's a temporary position. And he said, I'm not quitting my position on the Council of Economic Advisors. I'm not leaving my cush seat in the administration while I go work for the Fed. Not going to address conflict of interest. Not going to dignify your comments about me being beholden to the president because of my position. I'm not even going to dignify that with comments. Ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. Senator John Kennedy and other Republicans said, this guy's unimpeachable. He's so intelligent. He's got so much credibility. How could you possibly bring up these questions? And yet there he goes. He's going to be at that meeting with Lisa Cook. That's my prediction. They're all going to sit down tomorrow and Wednesday. This appellate panel will not put a hold on Giacob's decision. That's my decision on that. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, it's going to get to the Supreme Court. While Lisa goes and sits at those meetings, this is going to get kicked up after the appellate panel gives this administration the thumbs down. This is going to get kicked up. We've talked about these shadow dockets, these emergency dockets. We've talked about them. Most recently, Roberts coming out with the only opinion from this shadow docket about the USAID funding, the $4 billion that Trump is using a pocket rescission to claw back and take away, effectively killing that funding. Roberts came out after a shadow docket by the president was requested, and he was the only one that was willing to comment. Brief comment, ruled for the president. Ruled for the president. There have been 19 emergency docket requests from President Trump in just his second term alone. To give you an idea how many that is, the whole Biden term, there was a total of 17. A total. You want to talk about a weaponized Supreme Court? Let's do it. Let's talk about it. In Trump's second term, Alito for Trump 95% of the time. Gorsuch ruled for Trump 95% of the time. Kavanaugh ruled for Trump 89% of the time. Thomas ruled for Trump 89% of the time. Barrett ruled for Trump 79% of the time. And Roberts, right? Yeah, traitor. And Roberts, the holdover, right? Our Chief Justice, 74% of the time. How about the three liberal judges? Kagan, 26% of the time. Sotomayor, 11% of the time. And Jackson, Ketanji Brown, that's our girl, 0.0% of the time. That seems reasonable. You know what's interesting? what speaks to Biden's integrity and what speaks to the better nature with which Biden would present these is that overall, he enjoyed a slight majority in ruling from the Supreme Court on a whole. A little over 50% of the time, he would get a favorable reading from SCOTUS. A decision, rather. He would get a favorable decision. A little over 50% of the time. Even a weaponized Supreme Court, more than half of the time, had to say the Biden administration is doing the right thing. I found that interesting. I do not find it interesting in the least how weaponized they have been during Trump's second term. That I don't find interesting. How do you think they'll rule on the Lisa Cook firing? And I'm being genuine. How do you feel they will rule?
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.